In addition to the ethical conflicts raised, there were also some potential opponents to this tobacco-free program. Standing in the forefront of the possible opponents are the tobacco industry, tobacco-growing states, and some cultural communities. To begin, the most sizable opposition to the NOT program would be the tobacco industry. Several studies have found that despite the company's claims, the tobacco industry targets the adolescent population via several marketing channels. This means that the Not on Tobacco program targets their customers and demotes their merchandise, thus resulting in a loss of profit for the company. Another likely opponent to this public health initiative are tobacco-growing states. For tobacco-growing states, tobacco sales are a significant contributor to their economy. Thus, resistance to the implementation within these states could occur due to fear of the financial impact it may have on the local economy. The last adversary would be certain cultural communities, such as American Indians and Alaska Natives. Unlike the tobacco industry and tobacco-growing states, the primary motive for opposing the NOT program from this entity would not be related to money, but rather cultural practices. American Indians and Alaska Natives have the highest prevalence of cigarette smoking compared to all other racial and ethnic groups in the United States. Its use spans beyond that of recreation, being used for ceremonial, religious, and medicinal purposes. American Indians and Alaska Natives may oppose the tobacco cessation program for fear that this ancestral, sacred practice would be ruined as a result of their younger generation being educated on tobacco use prevention and cessation, and fearing the potential long-term effects. Next, there were several factors which contributed to the identification of the economic, social, and political factors that ultimately resulted in the creation of the Not on Tobacco program. To start, smoking-related illness in the United States costs more than $300 billion each year, which includes $170 billion for direct medical care, $156 billion in lost productivity, and $5.6 billion in lost productivity due to secondhand smoke exposure. As a result of these staggering numbers, it was apparent that tobacco use was of great cost to the U.S., thus there was an economic need for smoking cessation among the American people. This program addressed this need and used the information to develop and market the necessity of funding and implementation of this public health initiative in the community. Moving into the social realm, each year tobacco kills an estimated 434,000 American smokers and 53,000 non-smokers. Alarming as well is that there are an estimated 3,000 new tobacco users each day in the United States, which research shows is primarily made up of teenagers. This trend analysis identified that predominantly, adolescents are the population in which tobacco has an upward trajectory, and therefore an influential age group where tobacco prevention and cessation efforts could be impactful to the U.S. health as a whole. As a result of this social factor, the NOT program adolescent target population was selected, and this information was used to pitch the adoption of this program in local communities. Lastly, due to the identification of these large economic and social impacts, tobacco came into the forefront for the public health community, and subsequently political movements evolved. Of these political movements, those whom had the most potent demand reducing influences on tobacco use have been efforts to increase financial costs of tobacco products primarily through taxation, smoke-free policies, comprehensive advertising bans, and paid counter-advertising campaigns. The NOT program used all of the tobacco legislation and incorporated it into the actual program curriculum itself through explaining political initiatives and resources which support tobacco cessation. In order for any program to be successful, especially a public health initiative, buy-in from the community is a critical factor. Thus, it is often a factor which is considered and incorporated into these initial program pitches, marketing campaigns, participant curriculum, and supplemental materials. These factors, in conjunction with the high-level logistics of program implementation, such as cost setting, facilitation, and potential participants, ultimately interact to create a successful public health program. In efforts to create community buy-in to the NOT program, it was marketed primarily to schools. This strategic setting was selected since the program population was organically concentrated in this venue. Next, the consideration shifted to determining who the facilitators would be for the program, where it was decided the most obvious choice was to enlist teachers to act in this capacity. Since the potential setting, population, and facilitators were identified, the next concern was to enhance program buy-in from the community, and which dealt with the children in school in their local community. While the actual modalities through which the program promoted community was not published, it can be assumed that they faced relatively low resistance considering the nature of this program. Since the program was held during school hours, it did not alter the hours a student was in school, and was led by teachers in the school after they were properly trained, so there was not a concern of overburdening of the students or of unqualified, unknown facilitators. Furthermore, the American Lung Association paid for the facilitator certification, all curriculum materials, incentives for youth participants, a small thank you stipend for each group facilitated, and contributed funds to support implementation in the community so that they did not have to worry about the use of their own money and resources for these programs. Next, the NOT program addressed marketing the need for the program in the community. In order to do this, important economic, social, and political factors, such as the cost of tobacco-related healthcare expenditure, tobacco usage among adolescents, and the health consequences of tobacco usage, was conveyed to the public. After the importance and relevance of adolescent tobacco use and cessation had been marketed to the community, then information regarding the NOT program itself would be conveyed. Highlights of the program, setting, funding, curriculum, all would be outlined, along with the intent of the study to promote tobacco use, reduction, and cessation. Additionally, a critical element marketed to the community was that the program used no invasive techniques or methods. It just solely exercised verbal discussion and written supporting documentation to promote change in the adolescents. As a result, there were no negative side effects of the program. The worst outcome was that it may be ineffective at causing a teen to stop smoking. All of the NOT program data should have been disseminated to the community via informational handouts linked with a corresponding online platform where the additional information could be accessed. Specific groups within the community, such as the local public health department, mayor's office, school board, school facility, student body, and student body's family, should have been intentionally targeted to ensure these key personnel were supplied with this information. To date, the Not on Tobacco program has enrolled over 100,000 teens in 48 states, from which a tobacco cessation rate of 1 out of 6 students has been derived. As a result of these findings, the NOT program has been recognized as a highly effective program by the National Registry of Effective Programs. Several components of this public health initiative resulted in the success of this program. Factors such as the incorporation of the program into the time teens were already at school, groups which were small and gender-specific, voluntary enrollment participants, varying education modalities, and a curriculum that encompassed a holistic health with age-specific concerns were the main components which differentiated the NOT program from other tobacco cessation programs and ultimately contributed to its published success. Although the short-term impact of the non-tobacco program was not measured, the long-term impact found that the intervention group was twice as likely to quit smoking when compared to the control group, and the female intervention group was more likely to quit than the control group. Additionally, as previously discussed in the delivery section, a major selling point of this public health initiative was that tobacco cessation had essentially only a positive impact on their risk factors, quality, and quantity of life. The only objections which could be raised in regards to the possible negative impacts of the program would be that the teen no longer wanted to participate in tobacco use for religious purposes, their social activities may have to be altered, and they must develop a different stress reliever. It is important to note that none of these potential negative impacts affect their risk factors, quality, or quantity of life. Lastly, the scalability of the non-tobacco program to other communities is very possible. Considering the setting, facilitators, program curriculum, and overall program design, it is easily replicated and implemented in diverse, larger contexts all across the nation. Furthermore, the proprietary nature of this program is essentially found exclusively within the actual curriculum topics and course scheduling, which can be reproduced relatively quickly for a small cost. In conclusion, through the exploration of the public health resources, program infrastructure, and the health, social, economic, and political determinants, the practices and reasons for the Not on Tobacco program success have been identified. From this information, future public health initiatives are able to reflect and attempt to replicate these practices in order to create new, impactful programs with the intentions of enhancing the health of communities all around the world.